Welcome back to another segment on our show, where high school students talk about everyday topics and people just to share that we know everything about anything. We've been recently discussing economics, and this week I'm discussing two specific economists, Milton Friedman and Arthur Laffer. Milton Friedman was born in 1912. A bunch of economics actually had a survey held, and he was ranked the second most influential economist of the 20th century, which is a pretty big deal. He had many different types of work, whether it was economic, philosophical, or political, that influenced many different areas of our politics and now, like Social Security reform was all him, or partially him. Competition in education and tax policy, these were all influenced by his ideas. He was also a recipient of the Nobel Prize in Economics, which is a huge deal. In 1976, he obviously made a big enough impact to win that prize. His quotes that he's had include, "Only government can take perfectly good paper, cover it with perfectly good ink, and make the combination worthless," which is obviously addressing, the decrease of the American dollar. And how, money is decreasing and decreasing. And so it's a negative point of view, but it's very funny and it's relatable to me. And I think as a high school student, I kind of took that and I learned from it. And I think that was a really funny statement that he made. And he also said that, "I'm in favor of cutting taxes under any circumstances and for any excuse, for any reason, whenever possible." I also really like this because I think it's hard as an American to deal with taxes and on everything. It's like you get your paycheck back and it's like $100 less than you should be making. And I just thought he's a cool guy, and I can relate to his ideals, and I really value his opinions in that way. He wrote multiple books and also published different articles in the newspaper. His books include the Monetary Policy, Theory and Practice Journal of Money, and Credit and Banking and Capitalism. Then there's also the fact that he died in 2006, but the effects that he had on economics will last forever. He made a huge impact. So next I have actually an example of one of his theories. So this is a sequential analysis, and it just is one of his ideas, and this is a graph made up of it, and it just shows the different effects that it would have over time and over all that. So next there's Arthur Laffer. He was an American economist, and he first gained sort of respect during the Reagan administration, and he was a member of Reagan's Economic Policy Advisors Board, so from 1981 to 1989. One of his quotes that I really liked was, "We have the single worst recovery the U.S. has seen since the Great Depression. I don't care how you measure it. The East Coast knows it. The West Coast knows it. North, South, old, young. Everyone knows it's the worst recovery since the Great Depression." So he also has a very kind of, pessimistic point of view. He knew that, the recession that we were facing was a big deal, and that no matter who you were, your political standpoint, that it was a big deal, and that it should be looked at seriously, and it shouldn't matter, what political party you're from. We know that we're going through a hard time. So that quote stood out to me. And also that he said, "You can't have a prosperous economy when the government is overspending, raising tax rates, printing too much money, over-regulating, and restricting free trade. It just can't be done." So that was his personal opinion on the government and the way it's been running, and how that's not the correct way that our government should be running, and he disagreed with that. He's best known for the Laffer curve, actually, which is an illustration of theory. It shows the fact that tax rates exist between 0 and 100%, and that will result in a maximum tax revenue for governments. The curve suggests that as taxes increase from low levels, tax revenue collected by the government will actually also increase. It shows that tax rates increasing from a certain point, or point T, displayed on most graphs, would cause people not to work as hard or not to work at all. So thereby that would reduce the tax revenue. Eventually the tax rates reach 100%, the far right of this curve, and all people would choose not to work. So because everything they earned would just go to the government. So that shows that the higher the taxes, the less people are willing to work. He died recently in 2010, but his books include The End of Prosperity, How Higher Taxes Will Doom the Economy, If We Let It Happen, Pay Order of Puerto Rico, and Return to Prosperity, How America Can Regain Its Economic Superpower Status. So all his theories exist in these books and can influence future economists. And this is actually an example of the Laffer curve. This is the point T that I was referring to earlier. And this shows like the tax sequence or the revenue and the tax rate and how it just affects. And, you know, the higher taxes go, the less people that are willing to work, and the less tax revenue that would then be created. So that's my part of the segment. I will now turn it over to Carina, and she's going to tell you about her two economists. Until next time, thank you guys.
Hello, this is Kiana and reporting on economics from the past. Today we'll be talking about Franco Modigliani and James Tobin. I'll begin by discussing about Franco Modigliani. He was born in Italy on June 18, 1918, and soon after moved to the United States. He lived a long life and died on September 25, 2003, at the age of 85. He did many remarkable things during his lifetime, including being a professor at MIT and winning the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economics in 1985. His economic works included his life cycle model of consumption and the Modigliani-Miller theorem. The basic idea behind the life cycle model of consumption is shown on this diagram right here. So basically what he said was that when you're younger, you don't have a lot of money and you borrow it, so you spend it while you borrow it. And then while you get a steady job in your middle age, you get more money, so you save the money that you have, so you can spend it when you're older, when you don't have as much money, and you don't have a working job, so you spend the money that you saved from your middle age. That was basically the idea behind his life cycle model of consumption, was that when you don't have money, you spend it, and then when you do have money, you save it for when you don't have money to spend. Another one of his theorems was the Modigliani-Miller theorem. It showed that under certain assumptions, the value of a firm is independent of its ratio of its debt to equity. Now I will give a quote on Modigliani. The quote states that a situation where people can grow old without having a job that rewards them individually while adding to the collective well-being is morally unacceptable. You can cut that there. Modigliani, James Tobin was also a renowned economist. James Tobin was born on March 5, 1918 in the United States and died on March 11, 2002. Tobin was known for serving on the Council of Economic Advisors and also on the Federal Reserve System. And again, like Modigliani, Tobin won the Nobel Memorial Prize in Economics in 1981. Tobin's most memorable economic work was the concept of Tobin's Q. Tobin's Q is a measure to predict whether capital investment will increase or decrease. Tobin argued that his Q would be a good predictor of economic conditions for the ability to predict capital investment. Tobin's insight on economics helped pave the way for future studies in finance theory. As before, we'll end with a quote from James Tobin. His quote states, "I studied economics and made it my career for two reasons. The subject was and is intellectually fascinating and challenging, particularly to someone with taste and talent for theoretical reasoning and quantitative analysis." Thank you for listening for the segment on economics from the past.